This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Cureleaf, one of the nation's fastest growing multi-state cannabis operators with 43 local dispensaries, 12 cultivation sites, and 11 processing facilities serving more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. Learn more about Cureleaf over at cureleaf.com with Cureleaf spelled C-U-R-A-L-E-A-F. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Friday, April 5th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 699 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We started off this last day of the week in the Bay State, where yesterday the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission said it would closely examine the financial relationships and connections of some of the state's licensed marijuana businesses to make sure that no company was in control of more than the 3 licenses allowed. This follows a story in the Boston Globe that uncovered those alleged allegations, with 2 companies being called out for engineering secret back-end financing deals and management contracts that all but effectively put them in control of a large network of Massachusetts licensed companies. At least one of the 2 firms named Sea Hunter was bragging about their large in-state network in fundraising materials it was using with potential investors. During a regular meeting of the commission held yesterday, 3 of its 5 members, Commission Chair Stephen Hoffman, Britt McBride, and Shalene Title, an on-hiatus regular on our weekly show Marijuana Today, said they wanted to see more scrutiny of the companies. This is a good one to read in full. I should also quickly disclose that we have a working relationship with KCSA Communications of New York City, with whom we produce The Green Rush, and KCSA does do some work for the other company involved in this storyline, multi-state cannabis operator Acreage Holdings. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., a piece of comprehensive marijuana legislation was introduced into both the U.S. House and Senate by a bipartisan group of lawmakers. The so-called States Act, or Strengthening the 10th Amendment Through Entrusting States, was submitted into the Senate by Republican Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado and Democrat Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, while the House version was put forth by its 2 main sponsors, Democratic Representative Earl Blumenauer of Oregon and Republican David Joyce of Ohio. There is a whole raft of other co-sponsors on this one, which you can read more about over at Kyle Yeager's Marijuana Moments story. The bill's main thrust would free up states to experiment with state legal cannabis. Pop over to Kyle's story for all the details and to read the actual States Act yourself. We end today's top stories out in California, where state lawmakers voted yesterday on a bill in the Senate to extend temporary marijuana business licenses set to expire right about now in large numbers as regulators have fallen behind on processing renewal applications. We've been all over this storyline in recent days, with the state just last week announcing a plan to stave off the expiration of some of the thousands of licenses set to expire over the spring season. The bill passed out of the Senate yesterday, now heads over to the State Assembly, where it's expected to pass. There's a lot at stake wrapped up in this one, so maybe not a bad one to keep a pace of. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Cureleaf, one of the nation's fastest growing multi-state cannabis operators with 43 local dispensaries, 12 cultivation sites, and 11 processing facilities serving more than 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients. Cureleaf is also now traded as a public stock up on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol CURA. You can swing over to cureleaf.com to learn more about Cureleaf the stock and to dive into more about their popular Cureleaf medical marijuana line, Cureleaf Hemp, and Yuku Craft Cannabis. And since Cureleaf is operational in 12 U.S. states now, there's probably a Cureleaf shop close to you. Big thanks to everyone at Cureleaf for supporting today's show and for helping us keep the news lights on. One more time, that's cureleaf.com, spelled C-U-R-A-L-E-A-F. All right, time for the blitz. New Mexico Governor Lujan Grisham signed a bill into law yesterday that decriminalizes the possession of less than a half ounce of marijuana, replacing the jail time offenders had received with a $50 fine. The bill will go into effect on July 1st. Returning to Massachusetts for a headline, we have an important story by Sean P. Murphy highlighting a case involving a married couple who were turned away from a visit in March to a medical marijuana dispensary because only one of them was a registered patient. Don Smith is 72 years old and is living with inoperable late-stage cancer and is cared for by Deborah, his wife of more than 40 years. After they discovered that medical cannabis helped Don regain some of his appetite, they applied for a card for him, waited a few weeks to be processed, and made their visit to a dispensary, where they were told that Deborah couldn't go in with her husband, who decided not to go in alone, as he's dealing with the physical tolls of his illness. Thankfully, the Smiths' story made it to the ears of the Cannabis Control Commission, which took steps to inform medical dispensaries that caregivers are allowed to come into shops with patients. A new system is also being worked on that will allow patients to get a registration card on the same day they get a recommendation from a doctor. Give this one a read. Kyle Yeager is back with another headline, this time with a pickup of comments made on Wednesday by outgoing FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb before a House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing over how his agency is working out how to best regulate CBD. There's a lot to unpack on this story, so I'd recommend opening this one up too, but one of the top line comments made by Gottlieb was the fact that the CBD market is growing faster than the FDA can control it, mentioning the plans of CVS and Walgreens to start selling CBD products. Kyle's story is a good one and has video. Jump over to this one if your world includes CBD. My buddy Bruce Barcott over at Leafly has a story up that you absolutely need to read today that looks at the failures of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in getting adult use legalization into his budget through the frame of social equity and justice. I've mentioned this recently, but the days when we had to settle for any legalization bill are over. And now it's vital that any serious legalization plan include things like the protected funding for social equity programs, the ensured diversity of license holders and regulators, and community reinvestment plans for areas most hard hit by our war on marijuana. Read Bruce's story and share Bruce's story. Running along the theme of social justice, we have news out of Los Angeles, California, that the city's Department of Cannabis Regulation is looking to hire someone to run their social equity program. If you have a master's degree, at least 3 years of experience in economics or community development, and think that'd be a cool job, you could click through via Forbes to learn more about how to apply. Yesterday in New Hampshire, state lawmakers in the House passed an adult use marijuana legalization bill that will most certainly be vetoed by Governor Chris Sununu, a Republican prohibitionist who has said that he'd do as much. The bill will have to head to the state Senate for consideration there, though, before it's put before the desk of Governor Sununu. And finally for today, we have a story up that I have to admit changed the way I think about marijuana cultivation, mainly what the future looks like for large-scale outdoor production. Leafly's David Bienenstock looks at the question of how does the cultivation of outdoor industrial hemp complicate things for the cultivation of outdoor adult use or medical marijuana. Industrial hemp and the kind that are heavier in THC have no problem at all in cross-pollinating, and the cannabis plant is a wind-driven pollinator as is. So it's entirely within the realm of possibility that if you had a giant outdoor adult use farm, you could see your entire crop be put to seed if the winds blew the right way from a neighboring industrial hemp farm. This is something that's going to be an issue for sure, so maybe a good story to read today. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, send us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Curaleaf, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with Marijuana Today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.